Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
This is my top 5 Billy Wilder films ranked. I recently started watching Billy Wilder films, primarily The Apartment and Ace in the Hole. I had heard recommended on other podcasts and watched and loved, and knew that Billy Wilder was one of those auteurs, early days, who's got this huge catalog of films, and just one of the most well-respected directors, especially back there. Auteur, worked in multiple genres. You got dramas, you got romance, you got comedies, you got noir. Kind of able to work in all these different things. He did like over 50 films. As a writer who wanted more control over the words in the movies, decided to become a director, and just a guy that has movies that have super interesting characters, well-written characters. The casting is great. Just and interesting stories as well. Like, has very much a modern day feel to the performances, the writing, the stories. Like, everything feels very modern day. Obviously, most of them took place in like the 50s. I mean, his career went, I don't know where it started. Probably, let's see real quick here. Let me do this off the cuff. Started, he went as late as, no way, the 90s? No. I think directing, see, as a director, 81. Buddy Buddy was his last movie he directed in 81, and started in 1934 with Bad Seed being his first movie that he directed. Long career. So I watched a bunch of movies. Obviously, a lot of similar movies are rated high amongst most lists, so I think I got a good plethora, a good sampling of his movies, and I'm very confident with at least my personal top 5. These are movies that not only are well made, but I think I enjoy personally quite a bit. Like, they're movies that I really loved and that I would recommend to people. So let's get it started with my top 5 Billy Wilder films. Starting off with number 5 is a movie that my number 5 spot, there was a lot of, like, it was a revolving door. Movies came and went. Things got moved up. Things got left out. And it was really the spot that had the most changes while I was making the list. Even up till last night, I had a different movie in my top 5, but decided to put this movie in just because it's a little bit lighter, a little bit, I enjoyed it. It was a little bit different flavor. But coming in at number 5, my 5th favorite Billy Wilder film is The Fortune Cookie. This movie is starring Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, which are two greats. I mean, there's a ton of movies by Billy Wilder that Jack Lemmon was in, some of which might be on this list. But this one, had like Laurel and Hardy vibes. Basically, Jack Lemmon's character plays a video. He's video production for the NFL. Right, he's broadcasting. He's got the camera on his shoulder on the sidelines, and during a play, one of the players ends up running into him out of bounds, and because of that, goes to the hospital, get checked up on, and his sister's husband, his brother-in-law, is Walter Matthau, who's a smarmy, slimy lawyer type that wants to sue. I think the company that broadcasts, or maybe the NFL, but he wants to sue. They want to try and get all the money they can out of this accident that happened that they're trying to fake. But then you're also seeing the football player who caused the accident, or supposedly caused this accident, feeling the regret and seeing how that affects his life. So it's It's pretty great. It's a pretty fun movie, comedy. It's a bummer what happens to the football player. Like there's always like in all of the Billy Wilder films, most of them, it's like these people trying to get away with something. Like in so many movies, it's people trying to get away with something and being unsuccessful in being foolhardy in their desire to get away with it. And in this one, it's trying to sue this company to rip them off, pretending to be injured. And it doesn't go their way because it affects people other than themselves. And you see Jack Lemmon and his heart kind of come through at the end. I thought it was a lot of fun, a funny movie. I really enjoyed it and had a lot of heart to it as well. So because of that, it is coming in at number 5, The Fortune Cookie. Now, moving on to my number 4. My fourth favorite Billy Wilder film. This one is one that for the majority of the time making my list, this was settled safely at number 2. And as I watched the films, as I tried to constantly look at my list and reevaluate my list and really try to understand what movies, how I want to rank them, whether it's just pure enjoyment, whether I take into account things that I have problems with, things I have issues with, or maybe it's part of the movie that just doesn't hold up well. Because it's, there's definitely parts of these movies that just don't hold up well. You're talking about movies from 70 years ago. 80 years ago, 60 years ago. Some views may have changed since then, but they're still, surprisingly, at least in the movies I saw, they hold up pretty well. But this one has a little bit of an issue, and I think that little bit of an issue is why I had to knock it down to number 4 from number 2. But that movie coming in at number 4 is Ace in the Hole. Which is a movie I did a full review on, so if you want to listen to me talk about that, make sure you look that up. But Ace in the Hole is a movie about a reporter who is kind of at the bottom of the barrel. He's been fired from all of his other newspaper jobs, and now he winds up in a newspaper out in New Mexico, kind of the bottom of the barrel, the last kind of job he can get. And he's got a thing. He stumbles upon this story of this guy who's trapped in a mine. And this guy who's basically trying to steal artifacts, Native American artifacts, to sell in his gift shop. And he got stuck in the mine. And the thing that doesn't hold up, I mean, it's still around, but the thing that the disappointing part is that Kirk Douglas, who plays the main character, this reporter, there's a lot of, like, racism towards Native Americans in this movie. And it also uses racism as a tool for him to create a story, saying that it's like a cursed, like it's an Indian burial ground and it's cursed, basically trying to make people afraid of Native Americans. Like it's their ancestors that caused this tragedy to happen to this guy who was basically stealing their cultural artifacts to sell. But the main thrust of this movie, the main message of this film is how media will sensationalize and overblow a small story, a small human interest story into a circus, into, in this movie, what becomes a literal circus. And it's a message that is still relevant in the year 2022, where the media will do everything they can to sensationalize a story in order to get clicks, in order to sell ad space. Like it is not the media's job to report on things honestly and accurately as much as it is to get popular and, get a large audience to increase your ad sales money. So yeah, because of that, I love this movie. Because of that whole story about this reporter blowing this story out of proportion and then getting his comeuppance in the end, where it's like, it's like he's tried to squeeze every last drop out of this story, and then in the end, it all blows up in his face. And it's great. It's a great movie. It ends great. So impactful and impactive and impacting. It's very relevant. Let's put it that way. It's really relevant. So that's why it's coming in number 4. The racism against Native Americans is a bummer. Absolutely. But a great movie nonetheless. Coming in at number 4 is Ace in the Hole.
The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, but go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF, that stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out, browse the entire collection, and when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show.
Moving on to my number 3. This was a movie that, like, just got me. And it's a theme that is in other movies. And I'm curious to know if this theme is something that was just popular in films in general as, like, a thing. And it's that thing of, like, people trying to get away with something. But coming in at number 3, my number 3 favorite Billy Wilder film is Double Indemnity. This is a movie. Ace in the Hole came out in 1951, by the way. Double Indemnity came out in 1944. You have starring Fred MacMurray, Barbara Stanwyck. Fred MacMurray is a insurance salesman. Barbara Stanwyck is the wife of a man who works in the oil industry, but she's not happy with her marriage. And it's all about this insurance salesman selling life insurance, selling accident insurance to this guy, teaming up with the wife in order to collect that insurance money, to kill him and then collect the money, right? It's scamming the insurance company, which is very similar to the fortune cookie. But the thing is, with life insurance, it pays out double. There's double indemnity if somebody dies in like a way in which most people don't die. And one of those ways is involving a train. And so not only are they trying to rip off the insurance company, but they're trying to do it in a way to double their money. And this is a well-told story where you have one of the characters, you have Fred MacMurray's character, basically telling the story of the events into a little Victrola recorder, voice recorder, of the events of how everything unfolded, how we got to meet this woman, how their plan was, how things went wrong. It's kind of got a very noir type of sensibility to it, feel to it. Obviously, it's this couple trying to sneak away, trying to do this, like this intricate, well-written, this movie, well-written, this intricate plan where all these things have to do well because he knows the insurance company he works for and he knows how well they investigate things and how smart people are, so they're trying to outsmart those people. And then you realize there's another twist towards the end. This movie is so good. This movie is so good. You believe their the Stanwyck-MacMurray relationship for whatever that is worth in this movie. It's great. It's great. There is a scene in this movie where a car doesn't start. And it is the most stressful moment I have seen in so long where a car didn't start. Because for whatever reason, I wasn't expecting that movie trope to happen. But it happens in the perfect place. I don't know if I doubt that's like the where the trope started of like a car not starting in a time where you really need to get away from a situation. But that happens in this movie, and when it happens, I'm like, oh no. No, the car didn't start. Crazy. But I really did enjoy this movie. How it goes, how it ends, everything is like so smart, so well written, great performances, great casting, great acting. Everything is great. I really enjoyed Double Indemnity. Super stoked I was able to discover it rewatching these movies. And from 1944, I mean, it's like, get out of here. So good. So good, man. Just so smart. Cat and mouse. So good. So that's number 3, Double Indemnity. My third favorite Billy Wilder film. Now, moving on to my second favorite Billy Wilder film. This one I had said was, for a long time, this space was occupied by Ace in the Hole. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't leave Ace in the Hole at the number 2 slot. Because the movie I put in the number 2 slot, in addition to Double Indemnity, both are better. I don't have that issue that I have with Ace in the Hole. Right? That small bit of racism that doesn't really hold up. But coming in at number 2 is a classic film. It's a movie that I just reviewed a few days ago. I'd watched it for the first time along with all of these other ones, but one I'm glad I did. And one that's top to bottom a great movie. And it's a beautiful work of art and a great movie about movies. And that movie coming in at number 2 is Sunset Boulevard. It's a movie that came out in 1950 and just such a great movie about everything crumbling apart in slow motion. Whether it's the mansion that the actress lives in, whether it's the actress's career, whether it's the actress's mindset and brain itself crumbling apart in slow motion, whether it's this writer that gets wrapped into this disintegration that's happening, this slow motion disintegration, and how it for a moment takes him away from following his own passion because life just got too easy, to seeing how it ends with like the delusional silent actress who's like so desperate for a comeback doesn't realize that the cameras that are catching her are there to film the person who's responsible for a murder. So good. Obviously the classic line, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. Such a good movie. A great noir film, a movie about movie making, a movie about how the movie industry changed from silent films to talkies, very similarly in a lot of ways to Singing in the Rain. Very different story, very dark story. I mean, this is a descent into madness story. This is a story about a over-the-hill actress grooming her younger concubine. It is a great movie. And because it is so good on every level, the writing's great, the acting's great, the story's super interesting, everything holds up, I would say. And it's so interesting. That's why I had to put it at number 2. Slightly, I could almost put Double Indemnity here. But I think just from a standpoint of like everything that happens, because it's not just a cut and dry kind of a noir thing, even though Double Indemnity is not just like a cut and dry type of a noir film. But yeah, Sunset Boulevard, so good. So well written too. The beautiful voiceover. Like this movie has so much voiceover, but It's the voiceover is from the voice of the lead, who is a writer for films. So for a writer to be very flowery with his words and to use a lot of words to express things, the voiceover works perfectly. And I loved every aspect of the movie. And the end itself was like, whoa! It's like I was happy. I was happy with the movie. That's why it came in at number 2. My number 2 favorite Billy Wilder movie, Sunset Boulevard.
Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today.
Now moving on to my number 1, my all-time favorite Billy Wilder film. This was also the first Billy Wilder film that I watched. I think maybe was the first one. But is one that I loved when I saw it, and there's no movie that of his that it was so new and kind of different, and like I cared about the characters as much. So that movie, my number 1 favorite Billy Wilder film, coming in at number 1 is The Apartment. This is a movie that I've reviewed. I believe it was the first. It was either this or Ace in the Hole that I watched first, but I believe it's Ace or The Apartment. This came out in 1960, so the oldest of his films that I put on the list. Not the oldest that I watched or newest that I watched, but it is for the top 5 anyway. This is the oldest or the newest, most recent production, I guess, 1960. But you have Jack Lemmon coming back. He works in as a Manhattan insurance clerk whose apartment is being used by all of the different managers and higher-ups in his company. They use his apartment to cheat on their wives. And it becomes like this crazy scenario where Jack Lemmon's character is constantly having to adjust scheduling, and he's calling people, constantly trying to move scheduling around so that they all get their opportunities to use his apartment. Meanwhile, his apartment's being used so much that he's hardly ever there. Then there's this love story that comes in where Jack Lemmon's character is in love with the elevator operator, and the way their relationship gets intertwined, this movie ends up being kind of like a romantic comedy. Then you have the end, how this movie ends, where it's like somebody following their passion. These people, the clarity comes through. The thing that happens in a lot of romantic comedies as well happens, where the one person realizes that they're not with the one they truly love, and they run to go to the person they really love. There's a great misdirect at the end of this movie that happens, that's set up when these two characters. One of the character, the girl that runs who is Shirley MacLaine, runs the elevator that Jack Lemmon's character is in love with. She ends up attempting suicide. So part of this movie is Jack Lemmon's character trying to save her life. There's a scene where he opens up to her about his own struggle with wanting to end his life, and how he was going to use a gun. So there's this scene at the very end, this moment at the very end of this movie, where you hear a gunshot sound, and it in your head, you're thinking one thing because you remember that story that he told about wanting to kill himself, and it's a great twist. So the twist at the end is great. The love story's great. The whole talk about Suicide's great. His razor, because there's a scene where, he's trying to clear out his medicine cabinet of all the dangerous stuff. So like the pills and the razor, he takes the razor. He has one of those, it's like a butterfly razor. Like I don't shave. I haven't shaved for, I don't know how, over a decade. I have looked at razors that are like that razor because of this movie. But yeah, so many reasons why. Just an interesting story of a guy who's loaning out his apartment for people to cheat on their wives. Like crazy. And because of that, like all of his neighbors think that he's a party animal, but he's like never there. It's these other people that are using his apartment. It's a great story, fun. It's got drama, it's got comedy, it's got romance, it's got everything. So much fun. Definitely easily my number one. This was never not my number one Billy Wilder film. Highly recommend checking it out. It's just they don't make movies like this. They don't. This movie would have been so different if this was made today. So different. So I highly recommend checking out The Apartment. Obviously, if you're watching this, maybe you already are aware of Billy Wilder films and you've watched The Apartment and you know. But I loved it. So one more time, let me go over my top 5 Billy Wilder films. So this is my top 5 Billy Wilder films. Starting off with number 5, The Fortune Cookie. Number 4 is Ace in the Hole. Number 3 is Double Indemnity. Number 2 is Sunset Boulevard. And my favorite Billy Wilder film of all time is The Apartment. So go check them all out. Let me know what your top 5 favorite Billy Wilder films are in the comments. Let me know what I missed, what I should check out. I watched a ton of Billy Wilder films, and they are some of them are crazy. There's one, Avanti, where like one of the characters is constantly referenced as being overweight, and at no point does this character look overweight at all. There's a lot of like movies with big age gaps in the movie, like Love in the Afternoon and even Sabrina. It's like, what is going on? But yeah, let me know what your favorite movies from Billy Wilder are. I'm always looking for new movies to watch, and I am a fan of his. So if there are some hidden gems you think I should watch, let me know in the comments. Rank your top 5 in the comments, or hit me up on social media at Ray Taylor. But that's it. Hope everybody's having a great week. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at InspiredDisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at InspiredDisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.